Hey Paladins! Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Classroom. I am very excited for today's episode because today we'll be talking about a success story that started from something so simple. A small food stall that grew into one of the most well-loved pizza brands in the country. Our guest for today is not only a brilliant businesswoman, but also a proud mom, wife, and grandmother. She built her business with heart, passion, and values. Today, she's here to share her journey with us. Please join me in welcoming the woman behind the success of Latte Pizza, Mrs. Teresita Ngan-Tian.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you.
How are you?
First time to come to Southville, and I'm so happy to be with you all.
Wow.
Hopefully, I can get inspired by what we will talk about today.
We're very excited to talk about your story, and it's been such an honor to have you here.
Same with me.
We're all curious, ma'am. How did this all begin? How did Lots of Pizza start?
You know, I always say that our business started, it is a God-given business. I was working part-time with San Beda congregation, the priests, yung kanilang congregation. I was handling their finance. And every Saturday, I would go to San Beda, Mendora, to look at their books. One time, my husband passed by to fetch me. Our way home, saw a small spot in front of the building. And then he said, you know, Ma, that would be a good spot for a business. So sabi ko, what kind of business can we put here? Can we see the many students going around, passing by, San Beda, Centro, La Concepcion, Holy Spirit, St. Jude. So many schools in the area, and many people flocking because of Malacanang, and then the St. Jude Parish Church, and said, you know what is the best business to put up is food. But I said, but I don't know about food. I'm a CPA. You can digest numbers, not food. So, we can work on it. But then I was still employed. And so happened that at that time, we were in a problem with the congregation because there were 35 postulants coming in the priesthood. And at that time, San Beda, Alabang did not have yet enough funds to support. The same with San Beda, Mendora. And then so they asked me to work on something. So sabi ko, maybe this business venture that my husband was planning could be the answer. We made a proposal and we asked them to give us a portion of the rack where we could build up food stalls, and we put up about 12 of that. Small ones, take out, all snacks, no? We were paying the priest's rent for that. And that rental, they saved for 8 years during the term of the rent. That was used to pay off the expenses of the postulants. So, what we did eventually was given back in the form of the priesthood. God-given, blessed. Yeah, that's how it started.
Wow. Iba talaga when you put God in the center of it.
Yeah, oo. Kasi then, because maybe of my education, I grew up in college school at St. Joseph College, from kinder to college. In my exposure there and my education, I was able to imbibe the required spiritual life. Then I worked again in school, Catholic school. So parang it was already imbibed in me, yung spirituality and God-centeredness. Everything that we do, it's always left to God's will, ever He wishes.
I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will be inspired by that.
Yes.
We'd love to know po, why did you choose franchising to grow your business?
You know, ever since I was student and even the time that I worked, I got employed, it's always my passion to help. Whatever form, no? Not necessarily financial, but wisdom, sharing, helping people grow mentally, educationally. And when we went into business, we went first our own, had to study. So when we set up the business, we're still a longing that let's not expand the business only for ourselves. Let's involve others, let's expand. So franchising was the way to go. Because in franchising, there is always a ripple effect. When you franchise your business, you teach others to become business owners themselves, and these business owners hire people. So multiplier, because franchisee can hire as many as 3 people. So imagine if you increase your franchise outlet, so times 3 times 3 times 2. So you expand not only within your organization, but beyond. And it's also very fulfilling because imagine teaching others how to do business, how to grow their business, and how to be successful in their business. Right now, we have 145 franchise outlets, but only 45 franchisees because many of our franchisees are multi-unit owners. In fact, the biggest one owns 35 outlets already. Yeah, that is in Batangas, Mindoro, Quezon. Almost all of the south areas meron siya outlet. Others have 5, 4. Basta, many of them are multi-unit owners. So, we've been franchising for since 2001, 20 plus years already. And we're happy to note that we never had a problem about them. No legal cases, no heartaches with them. They are very good franchises. The relationship is very good. That's what we nurture, relationship. Because we always want them to grow. We want them to be stable because eventually we would want them to also learn how to franchise and come up and think of a business that they could also franchise.
That's so beautiful.
Yes.
Because aside from running your own business, you also open doors for other people.
Yeah, of course. There should be no stopping to other people learning, growing, financially, community. All these things are you should be always open.
It's very beautiful. Yes, I've been searching about you and I've heard a lot of stories about you. And what impressed me the most is when I heard that you flew to the US to take this specialized training.
I didn't know about food, just cooking in the house, for the family. When you really want to do something, you have a goal, and you have the passion, you will always go to it no matter what. I know about baking. I can bake some bread at home, home baking lang. But baking for a business, parang it was out of my, sabi ko, I prefer to work on numbers rather to work in the kitchen or whatever, But then, since we wanted to go into business, and we wanted really to have a business that we call our own, signature product that we have, that we can call our own. So I had to study pizza making in the US because there was no school here. There was no school teaching pizza technology. So I was so brave at that time. I went alone. I went to Kansas. That's the American Institute of Baking. And when I was in LA to get my connecting flight to Kansas, I was so terrified to see the plane. It was only a 6-seater. Sabi ko na, parang it was like a grasshopper going up and down. Sabi ko, will I reach my destination? And then I was alone in the hotel. If I didn't take the courage to proceed, I have to complete this, I have to finish. And I was so glad because I had classmates who were also pizza owners in the US. I was the only Filipino and the first Filipino actually to study there. And we were just 3 Asians. One is Singaporean, another was, I think, Malaysian. And all the rest were Americans. And they were tall people. And it was so nice because they babied me. Parang I was the smallest in the class. So they were always assisting me and, Then after the course, I would meet them sometimes in the Pizza Expo. Every time we go to Las Vegas. Yeah. It was a very nice experience.
I was really inspired because it reminded me of someone who really, if you really want something, you really have to work for it. As long as you have the heart and passion.
There is no saying that, hindi ko alam yan, hindi ko alam gawin yan.
Correct.
Kaya ko yan. Basta you have the passion, you want to reach a goal, everything will come in handy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's one thing.
That's why when we went into franchising, never expected that we could grow this big. There was no course in franchising. I just had this one course in LA when I went back. But here, none. There was nobody would teach you how to go into franchising. My husband and I just went through it on our own. It's good because my husband and I are both CPAs. So when you're a CPA, an auditor from SGB at that time, you get to know the way to go to business. You know how to operate. You will know how to audit. So things came in handy because actually franchising is more of operations. So because you're going to transfer your operations and your brand to the franchisee. So if you know operations, you know process, you know procedures, it's so easy.
Thank you so much for that very insightful as an entrepreneur student as well. Of course, it's very important for us to learn from is Actually, we also have subjects that involve franchising, but of course, it hits different to learn it from someone who has experience.
But I'm willing to go to your class and talk about it.
Please.
Because I was just in another school 2 weeks ago. These were college graduating students, and I talked about franchising. Yeah, I can always come and talk about it, not necessarily in a lecture setting, just sharing.
It really shows that you really have a generous heart. That's why you are blessed, po, because you've been a blessing to others. And
it's always because your blessing should always be released to others.
That's very good.
Because it's so nice to see them growing, becoming successful, because you are really part of their success.
Very inspiring talaga so much. What sets your business apart from any other pizza brands po?
Well, first of all, if you talk about the product, it's the crust itself and the sauce. That was actually what I studied for, the crust and the sauce. So it's really a signature one, different from the others. Actually, that is primarily what our customers want, our crust, which is not like the others which are oily. After a while, even when they get cold, you don't want to eat them again. Ours can be left there, it can be eaten even when it's cold. In fact, actually, when I was applying for outlets, there was one mall where I applied for, and when they asked me for samples, they ate the pizza raw. Meaning to say, you just tap the crust with the sauce, with the cheese, and the toppings. They did not heat it or bake it. They ate it raw. And sabi nila, that was their test to make sure that the pizza is fresh and it's good. You can eat it even when it's cold.
Crave talaga ako ng pizza.
Yeah. I know, sorry, I wasn't able to bring today. Our stores are still closed.
We will order na lang po.
I will have it brought here one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I will have it.
We would love to try that.
Yeah.
Bigla akong curious sila.
Let me know when.
I know you've always mentioned po that your mission goes beyond profit. So can you tell us more about how your business has impacted a lot of franchisees?
When you go into franchising, first of all, the franchisor like us should be well prepared, technically, professionally, and financially. Because we are the ones going to start the business for them. So we have to be armed with enough resources, enough support, good people, because we will be the ones supporting them in terms of marketing, operations, and sales, R&D. So all these things, talagang we have to be prepared. And of course, when you have to prepare, you should have the resources financially and, of course, equipment and the know-how. And when we started the business, I didn't stop learning. My husband and I would go to the Pizza Expo in Las Vegas every year to get new ideas and to mix with people and to meet with suppliers who have contacts here. So there's no stopping to learning. And even our franchisees have to be guided. So we have to support them in terms of knowledge, how they operate their business properly, how they can upscale their sales, and how can they do marketing. And then we do the R&D ourselves, and then we turn it over to them. If we have to come up with new products or new ideas, this all comes from the office, and we transfer it to them. So anything that you do, you should make sure that it will create something positive for them, not only financially, but I think it's more of the satisfaction and the feeling of success rather than the money. Yes.
It's always about people, passion, purpose, over profit. Yeah, so number one, guys, be prepared. One thing we've learned from Miss Lorna's class. Number one rule, you have to be prepared and never stop learning. Learning is a continuous process.
And you should be able to undergo stress. You know, business is stressful.
Correct, and it's risky.
Yeah, it's very stressful, but you should know how to carry it. Anyway, it comes and it goes. So it doesn't stay there all the time. It's really part of business.
It's always taking risks.
Yeah, of course. Of course. The same way that when you franchise, you share the risk Actually, when a franchisee applies, we have to make sure that the location that she is applying for is going to be financially viable, because we don't want them to lose their business. We don't want them to lose the money that they have invested. So whenever we try to check the site and check the franchisee, it is as if I own that location. I will be the one to own that location. Right? It's mine. So if it's going to be mine, shall I get it? Shall I proceed? Shall I not? So I put myself in their shoes. Para I feel, kasi also, what's important also is women have a natural instinct, intuition.
Yes.
So I can really feel if pwede or hindi. Not only with the site, but also with the franchisees that I have to interview.
Yeah. Instinct. Very powerful. Speaking of legacy, I've heard that despite many stores in the country, you were still able to prioritize your family,
Yes,
like
of course.
doing groceries and checking the house yourself.
Yeah, and you know, when we were starting the business, I myself was going to the market as early as 5 a.m. Yeah, to pick up the meat that we will use for our burger patties, to get the pork to be used for our siopaw, and the other things that we needed. And then every Saturday, I would go to Divisoria to buy materials and supplies. I started that way. I was the only one going to the market, driving the car, because I had to rush. Because after driving trains to the commissary, I would rush to work. I was doing business. I was working. I was still employed, but I was already out of San Beda after we went into business, because I didn't want to have a feel that I got the business because I was an employee, so I had to leave. And you know, I transferred to another school after that. Bloomfield Academy, if you have heard about Bloomfield.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I was the one who started the finance administrative department there. And then I left when we started doing business already. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with the school setting. And I love the school. You know, it was the groundwork for my children, because all my kids stayed took up to high school in San Beda, Alabang, and then my eldest finished in San Beda, Mendoza. Well, my two other kids studied in Lasal. So, tuloy-tuloy pa rin sa San Beda.
Yes.
All the way.
I super love that. Super mom energy.
And it was so good because, you know, the teachers know me. And they make sure that they took care of my children. Even giving me tips, tomorrow may test ha. I-review mo sa dito ha. Magkano lang. Pero ano naman yun?
Ang cute!
So they were really looking after my kids. So it was so good kasi the kids had a different way of looking at things, yung values.
Yes,
very important yung values. Very important.
It really shows that a lot of people look up to you and respect you.
Yeah, that's very important. When you're in business, you should have that integrity and self-respect
And
all the way.
yes, po. And respect is being earned.
Yeah,
You
of
worked
course.
hard for it.
Yeah, from the time you start up to now, you should earn that.
If you could give an piece of advice to young entrepreneurs like us, what would you tell us?
Well, the entrepreneurs, you should already start from even at this early stage. First of all, mindsetting.
Mindsetting.
Important mindsetting. You set your mind on you want to be. I want to be an entrepreneur. So, nakaset na ang mind. No? Next that is, what should make you go into entrepreneurship? First of all, you should do well in your studies. Because basic yan.
That's true.
Math, English, or whatever, any subject that you get in college, it will always be of help when you go into business or even when you work or get employed. Thirdly, you should not stop learning. If you have the chance to talk to people who are experienced or know the topic, you can approach them and talk to them. Get their experiences, know how they did things so that it can be part of what you intend to do when you get into into business already. And then, of course, if you're available to attend seminars, conferences, or any activities where you can get additional knowledge, you should always get interested. At even my age, do you know that I still attend conferences and seminars? Up to taxation, to the HR. And sometimes my classmates there would ask me, why are you seated there? I think you should be in front. They would, binibola ko eh. No, sabi ko, I cannot stop learning because I have to continuously share these learnings to my staff, to my franchises, to my colleagues, no? So, any possible if you can get into organizations, I think might help. In my case, I am involved in different business organizations. That's where I get network opportunities, I get to know people, I get to know contacts. I went to CCI, Philippine Marketing Association, Philippine Franchising Association, and ICFB, and very important for me is the Go Negosyo, where I'm involved as a mentor. So I'm not only mentoring my franchises, I'm mentoring startups or those who would want to go into business, or those in the business but would want to ask questions.
Inspiring.
It's a continuous. In fact, I was so glad that in one of my mentorship, my mentee was planning to sell her oil because she was doing her own massage oil. And then during our conversation, I learned that she was an acupuncturist. So it was so interesting. And then now she comes to the house regularly to do acupuncture and massage. Sabi ko, that was a welcome idea because wellness din na kasama eh.
Tama.
So that's one way of getting contacts or getting other people, knowing other people who could be of help to you.
Correct. That's very true. I agree. Wellness is also very important because I know a lot of businessmen neglect their health. And so
I have to really keep healthy because there are so many people who are dependent on me. Not necessarily dependent financially, but they need me to support them. Yeah, especially our franchises and employees.
Yes, and I love how very generous you are in terms of sharing all your knowledge.
Yeah, because God gave you that, so let's hear it.
Correct. You're very grounded, very humble. That's why no wonder why you're very blessed po.
Yeah, thank God.
Thank God, always.
Always.
With God and
always. Yes. Gratefulness is very important. I can share. Kasi what you learn from the book is not actually what you learn.
Correct.
It's
Beyond
more
the
than
classroom.
That. It should be more experiential. It should be more experience.
So I would also ask is a lot of students, especially in our class, we were sometimes confused. Are we for employment or for business? Can you tell us something about
I think it's more, actually it comes naturally. What's your inkling? Do you want to work 8 to 5? Or do you want to have freedom of work? You can have your own time. You can expand, you can grow, even without people under supervision. You're willing to take challenges, risks, pressure, stress. But what I would advise is, before you go into business, it would be good if you have an experience in corporate work.
Correct.
Because you're able to prepare yourself important dito is how to manage people, how to deal with people, because you're exposed to people when you're employed. And important dito yung work discipline.
Work discipline.
Because if you go into business, you should have work discipline yourself.
That's very true.
So I think it's the preparation.
Preparation is
And then when you're prepared, and when you notice na, wait, I can do something more, I don't want to be tied up from 8 to 5. I want to have my freedom. I want to have more chances of exploring other things without the need of somebody telling me what to do. Then that you're meant for business. Yeah. In fact, that's why we went into business. My husband didn't want the work from 8 to 5. I didn't like this kind of work. I want to learn have my own work. So that's why he put me into business. Actually, I didn't want to because I had a good time already in the office, signing checks and reports and meeting people. Because I don't want to get into business. I'm going to sell. But it was different. When I went into it, it was already a different experience.
That's true because some of the business schools would say, do not be employed kailangan you have to be the boss of your own
Yeah, but I
business.
think
But
for me, you should have the preparation. And
Correct.
being in a corporate world for sometimes, 2 years lang. You have to get the feel of how to deal with people, how to work discipline, how to go into process, organization, how to get organized.
that's true. I agree
Yeah.
when you said we have to have like a corporate experience.
Yes, that's very
Yes.
important.
So
I was in the corporate world for mga 20 years before we got into business. Yeah.
So it really takes
Different
time.
types of industry.
Really depends on you and your calling.
Yeah.
You just really have to be first, of course. Be prepared and very important, work discipline.
Mindsetting.
Mindsetting, yes, that's true.
In fact, you know that in Go Negosyo, we have just one module just for mindsetting.
I actually heard about Go Negosyo. I was curious about it. How can is there any way we can join that?
You
Is
know,
that the
in Go Negosyo, they already involved and organized for youth entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And I can patch you up with them. I will get the administrator to get in touch with your school or whoever will be would like to be interested, and you can talk about it. Because I'd like South you to get out of this.
No,
I think you should be more exposed into the outside world.
that's true. Very important.
Yeah, you get more inspired when you're outside.
And when we get to
And you will know what you want to do.
Correct. Yes, and we are looking forward to learning from experienced and
Yes.
expert business leaders in the industry. Yeah, so thank you so much for that very insightful and inspiring message. Do you have any message or advice for those people or young entrepreneurs who want to start a franchising business?
Starting a franchise business is also like the franchisor, requires preparation. But what is easy in a franchise business is you don't have to worry about how you will start, how you will manage, how you will operate. Because the franchisor is like your big brother, who is at your back, who will teach you how to go through the process until such time that you can be left independently to operate your business. So franchising is a better alternative than setting up your own business. Because there's already a brand.
Yeah.
There's also a model to choose from. And there's a franchisor always to guide you for anything that you need.
And they will
But if you
prepare
start up on your own, who will look? Who will teach you? Who will guide you?
you have to
Hindi ganun
start
kadali.
from scratch.
It's an experience. It's a little expensive because you have to pay a fee. But you can always recover that if you're able to make your franchise viable and you have a good profit. I mean, the return on investment is easy
It's much easier.
because the franchisor will guide you on how to make your business successful. Because they have already attained success, so they can always share.
Something that our listeners might consider po. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. It's such a reminder that business isn't always about profit. It's about the three P's: the passion,
It's about
purpose,
passion,
and
making others share your success.
yes, that's true. And there you have it, everyone. The heart and vision behind Lakso Pizza, the very beautiful and very inspiring Mrs. Teresita Ngan-Tian.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much and good luck to all of you. I hope to see you in business.